This is DEF CON 30 CTF, the CTF, not any of the other ones. This is the main one at DEF CON 30, which attracts some of the best hackers in the world. And I'm sitting here with Jordan, who is one of the designers of this competition. Can you tell me a little bit about what they're seeing this year?
Sure. So now I want to be clear too, because there's actually like a whole bunch of people that work on this. I'm working on like a little piece of it. There's a portion we're calling Live CTF. I'll get to that in a second. But the main CTF is being run by Nautilus Institute is the name of the group, and it changes like every year. This is actually the first year that Nautilus Institute's run it. I actually have played DEF CON CTF for 21 years now.
Wow.
I've been either playing or helping. Like I've had a lot of different roles in it. When it first started, CTF was so capture the flag is like, you know, you've got flags, but they're digital, and you're trying to find them before your opponents does. Maybe you're trying to break into their server to get their flags, and they're trying to break into your server to get your flags. It started, so like the first time I played, literally 21 years ago, I think it was DEF CON 9, it was, you could kind of walk up, like anybody, you would just sit down, you'd plug in, it was real casual, and you would join the CTF, the competition, and there was a couple of servers kind of being run for you. It was a little more like ad hoc and informal. And so if you walked up, you would just like attack whatever was there. People would sometimes bring their own servers to add them up. The rules kind of changed. It was a couple years later that it kind of got formalized around, I think it was DEF CON 12 or 13, where the first team that said, hey, listen, we're gonna have a qualifying round, but to even play in the finals, you have to like compete beforehand. We're gonna come with like a pre-built infrastructure. You get a server, you get a server. It's not just like whatever you showed up with was whatever you were running.
Yeah, it's more like the attack defense style. Like
that's exactly right.
There's Jeopardy, which is there's a board, there's challenges on the board. You're going to pick and choose challenges. Like, oh, there's a web challenge, there's a reverse engineering challenge, and then you do that challenge, you can get the points, and either it locks out the team. But this is attack and defense.
Yes.
Everyone gets an identical system.
Exactly. It starts out identical at the very beginning, and they're vulnerable, right? Like, but the difference is they're not like. DEF CON has been unique over the years in that, unlike other competitions, it's attack defense, and not a lot of CTFs are attack defense. Most are just here's some challenges, and you solve the most of them, you get points and you win. DEF CON, on the other hand, is everyone gets their server, and you're both defending your server, you're attacking the other servers, and it's custom ground up, written from scratch. So every program running on your server is one that was written for the game. No one's ever seen it before. It's not like you come in with a list of vulnerabilities and you patch them all. There are other competitions.
Like, you know, here's the Apache 2.2 vulnerability.
Exactly. You're running some,
you
vuln scanners, and exactly. So there are other ones, and you know, not to denigrate those. There are good competitions, and those are obviously real world skills. It's useful, but DEF CON is considered kind of like the pinnacle and one of the hardest because I mean it is ground up. You are finding exploits, you're fighting vulnerabilities, writing exploits for these very hard challenges in a 48-hour window or a compressed kind of time frame. And so you have to be good at vulnerability research, reverse engineering, network defense, network monitoring, system configuration, network defense. And so that kind of all comes together in this like, you know, compressed weekend.
When I can also imagine with an attack and defense, you really have not only like, at a certain point, you're not a small team anymore. You're not, here's the reverse engineer, here's this person. You almost have, here's the program manager who's going to be in charge of communication between the whole team.
I've been in that role, and it's not fun. So, okay, so when I started, my very first year, I played with a team called Team Last Place, but it was spelled one at ST Place, and we're like, we have our like bases covered. We either get first or last or somewhere in between, and therefore, one of these was right. It turned out we won first that year.
Oh, wow.
And so we got some black badges. There were 8 people on that team. It was an 8-person team. I think the next year we maybe had 10 or 9. It was a smaller team.
That's still a relatively small team.
That was a small team, and that was the normal.
So
this was back again. This was back like 15 years ago, when that was kind of the norm. And teams started to get bigger over time, to the point where actually this year there's literally a GitHub repo that tracks like the merging of all of the teams that have come together. Because what'll happen is like one region or one group will qualify, and maybe some other friends of theirs or affiliates or whatever that were on teams that didn't qualify will all kind of like merge together. And so you had like this family tree of like all these CTF teams. In fact, even the names of a lot of the CTF teams that are going to be here playing tomorrow are conglomerations of multiple teams that came together, and they've just kind of combined their names. And so you can see the sort of lineage there. But yeah, these are teams that have 20, 30, 60 people on some of these teams, absolutely. Now, only 8 are allowed in the room, but most of them have teams kind of offsite. There may be a couple of small individual teams. You can still qualify as a really good, top-notch, 8, 10-person team, but it is rare now. It's the exception. More of these teams are bigger. But I've been, you mentioned the program manager
Yeah.
role, I've done that. I've had like my day job turn into my like hobby when I was literally a role that all I did was do communication for a 60-person team here at DEF CON, maybe this is about 10 or 9 years ago. And it's exhausting,
You
it's
said
stressful.
6 or 60?
60. We had 60
is a
people.
huge
We had a
team.
suite upstairs. We had a team downstairs. We had a bunch of custom, like we even brought like custom point-to-point wireless links to try to like set up our own. Like, actually, that was the year that we were in the Rio, and the foil on the outside that had the Penn and Teller logo and stuff. That foil actually blocks RF. So like we were testing this like free space optical stuff and like trying to actually get like good RF links, and we couldn't do it through the like the foil lining on the windows, which is kind of funny. So. Yeah, you have all sorts of roles. You got teams that are like logistics. You're getting food. You're doing people all these different roles, and then you have people that are just vulnerability research, just exploit writers, just network defense, network monitoring, like all of that different stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the network monitoring too. It's like you understand there's this box, there's too many vulnerabilities you're going to be able to find, and oftentimes you monitor watching for other people's exploits and then try and reverse engineer what they're doing to see if you can recreate those to attack other bots.
Exactly, and they're custom services, right? So it's not just you're monitoring the network, but it doesn't speak HTTP. It doesn't speak these other standard network protocols, right? It's doing something different. Now, a lot of the times.
Wait, hold on. You're saying you're saying custom protocol. So it's like I'm sure there might be one HTTP or something like that, maybe.
So
but like,
web is underrepresented in DEF CON finals. So in particular, HTTP doesn't show up a whole lot. It has, and it does, but like it is underrepresented. More commonly, you'll see like this text-based protocol, some little like a little MUD or a text-based game, or like a all these different little kind of text challenges, or just custom binary protocols will show up occasionally. But you've got to both analyze the network that maybe the game server is doing to like normally exercise the services. They have what's called a service polar, making sure that your infrastructure is up and working. Because you can't like, if you unplug your server, ta-da, you can't hack me. So the game will check to make sure you're up and running and you've left the original server going. And if you lose SLA points, that impacts your overall ability to score. So it's really important that you keep your server running.
So this is fascinating. This is in my field.
Yeah.
So you have services.
Yep.
And then you have the scoring engine.
Yes.
And that scoring engine is like polling. It's polling to say, is that service
That's
up?
exactly right, yeah.
Do
And
teams-
exercising it and using the service, not just like opening a socket, but like actually interacting with it in a normal
Yeah.
way. So that you can use that to help your understanding of how it's supposed to work for some of these things. And then you're combining the network information with your reverse engineering to get a better understanding of what it does. But other teams are also talking to you in the midst of the service polar. And they actually have historically done, so the game has changed many times over the years, and so there's actually a lot of different styles of this. I'm not going to comment on exactly what Nautilus is doing this year because they'll be surprised to the teams tomorrow.
Yeah, by the way, it's Thursday. Game hasn't started yet, so like we're being a little tight-lipped on some of
Just
this.
a little bit. Come back, tomorrow there'll be a little more. And actually, you should talk to some of the Nautilus folks about what, because again, they're doing more of that stuff. I can tell you a little bit about live CTF in a second. But there's been a mixture. Sometimes you don't get a direct network socket. Network cable that you're actually tapping on or getting your traffic on. Sometimes you just get PCAPs dumped to you periodically.
Oh, okay.
And you don't directly man in the middle of your network traffic. It used to be you would get two cables, one from the game network and one to your server, and it was up to you to like route between them into firewall and do whatever you wanted and to kind of control it. What happened though was there were too many teams who were running shenanigans where like they would spin up just another server, they would copy the services onto it, and then they would run it there, and no one could ever score on you because unless they were attacking the right server, they couldn't get the flags that the organizer was doing. So then the organizers had to come up with all sorts of ways to like, am I really talking to the real server?
Yeah,
And so there was
that's exactly where my mind was going. Like, could I be able to figure out how the service is running, simulate the service in a way where I can hit it on the scoring engine?
Yeah.
But in some ways, at a certain point, you're doing all the work to find the vulnerability, but it's also sometimes easier just to go, okay, I'm going to copy this service.
Well, you can just run the binary, exactly. Copy the binary to a different box, and that's the easiest way to do that. It's happened, and the organizers have a variety of things they've done over the years to prevent that. For example, they'll put a cryptographic backdoor, so they'll have a private key, and they'll embed the public key in all of the binaries, and so if they connect to it, they can create a signed request and say, show me what's on the hard drive, show me what processes are running, like use some sort of like administrative backdoor. Yeah. And if they see something that indicates you've modified the system in a way that like moved that binary somewhere else, then they drop your SLA because you didn't match the expected response they expected from the real server. And so there's been a lot of ways that the teams have kind of done that over the years. But in fact, the last, there was a series of years as well, started by Cyber Grand Challenge. So that was when DARPA ran like the automated computer versus computer competition. And as a result of that, we called it the brokered game, where you didn't even run your own server, you didn't have root on your server, you would just say, here's my patched binary. The system would automatically take your patched binary, it would run it for you, it would give you PCAP, it would give you results, but like you didn't directly access your server. Because that prevents a lot of this sort of shenanigans of like, routing stuff that you could pull. But you still have to have the same skills of monitoring the network, reversing the binaries, patching the binaries, and so that was a useful way. And it was the only way the machines could even play because they needed like an API interface. It wasn't sort of fair to be like, here's a system, make a machine learning thing that can do all of that stuff. We just, the goal is to focus on the binaries.
Okay, man, I could talk about so many of that. Mainly like, in some ways, it's it's DEF CON CTF. So like one of the things I'm curious about is how do people cheat? How do people like?
Oh yeah.
I won't say hack the system, but like, it's so fascinating.
Was it DEF CON 18, I think? I gave a talk called Maximum CTF. It's on YouTube. You can go watch it, where I talked about some of the dirty tricks that we've pulled, that other teams have pulled. There's a whole history. I gave another talk at a different conference as well on like CTF history, talking about. There's a whole bunch of like really really fun stuff people have done just in like breaking the game, and it's interesting because on the one hand, we could anybody here is capable of like DOSing the network and killing it. And it's not interesting, it's not fun, it's not technically challenging. And so like nobody
does that.
And nobody you would get like kicked out of the room and lose all the respect to your peers, right? Like you want to come and prove that you're the best here at the game, not just that you can do stupid stuff. And so it is this interesting fine line of like what is clever and what is malicious. And like there's been a team that dropped a 0-day exploit against the BSD kernel and was jumping out of jails and like coming across the infrastructure one year. And the organizers that year, it was the DD Tech year, did not take too kindly to that. Some of the other teams were like, hey, good for them. This is a legit, they were, and that's right there on that line where there's strong opinions either way.
Yeah, so you said something like, you're here to prove you are a strong competitor, a strong team. What separates a strong team from a lesser strong team? Like, what are the skills that one has that the other one has?
So I think the most important thing is actually, the first thing is you have to be a really good vulnerability researcher. You have to be able to like reverse engineer, find a vulnerability, and create an exploit. If you can't do that, everything else can be as good as you want it to be, and you will never win this game. The second thing, though, which is really close behind it, is you have to be really well coordinated. You have to work together as a team. Your offense and your defense have to talk together. As soon as you create an exploit, you have to have the patch deployed on your server. And you need to have the people who are managing your server tell you when they think you're being exploited by somebody else so that they can inform the person who's working on your exploit, hey, by the way, we had the sample, we think it's somebody else's attack. Does this help your knowledge of this good communication and not like it'd be inefficient or like miscommunication, dropping the ball. One year, for example, we had an exploit that somebody, when we were a split team, a big team, somebody made an exploit and it just got miscommunicated. Nobody on the game floor even knew that we had the exploit. So it didn't get thrown for like 4 hours. And so we were losing a lot of points. So really tightly coordinating. And that's where like team size hurts you. When you get to 40 people, you don't have the same level of coordination that you do at 8 and 12, right? Like you just can't. And so it's this really interesting trade-off to you've got a lot of people and you can do a lot of breadth. Different organizers have done different things over the years to try to minimize the advantage of a big team. So for example, one of the things that some of the current Nautilus Institute members were actually a part of LegitBS, which ran the CTF for 5 years before the most recent. So the most recently was Order the Overflow. Yep. The last 4 years, I believe, before this year. And then before that was 5 years of LegitBS. One of the things that LegitBS did specifically to try to minimize that was they didn't have like 10, 20, 15 challenges, a large number of challenges. They would have like 6 or 5 really hard, big, complicated challenges, and then they would change them. So after like the first day, they would patch the one vulnerability and they would introduce a new vulnerability. Oh. And the idea was that like if you have a couple of really good experts really learning and understanding this thing, they could keep up and continue. And a team that just had a lot of people, like it just didn't do them a lot of good. Mm-hmm. And so that was, there's like a lot of different techniques that people have tried to do that.
I played a lot of CTFs and I really do enjoy them. But there's like a category of, we'll say creators who go, I want to screw with this person. I want to ruin their day.
Yeah.
And those aren't fun.
She's nodding. Yeah.
In some ways, like those aren't fun because you're like, they're frustrating just for the sake of being frustrating.
It depends on the person. Yeah.
And then there's the other ones where like, I want them to get that point where they stand up and they're like, yes, like I nailed this one.
That aha moment. And the problem is for some people, those brutally hard ones are the most rewarding, and then some people can't do it. And so there is this, like, you don't want to push people too far that everyone's like, this is just stupid, this is not fun, it's not enjoyable, there's no real value in this. And knowing how far you can push people not only changes, the challenges of today are so much harder than the challenges of 10 years ago. That's why I don't play anymore. It's because it's so hard. I would way rather run it and talk about it. And so it's very, very difficult. And so you have to really stay up on the current sort of state of the art, latest research, what's happening, as well as just have that kind of base skills to be able to apply to new situations. So can I talk a little bit about the thing that we're doing that's new this year that we have talked about? So this year, one of the things that I've always wanted to do, and we actually tried this once several years ago, and I was asking earlier about your camera and the mics and kind of like the streaming side of it. I've always wanted to have an interactive component where, so CTF, like if the teams were here now and you'd walk around with a camera, they would like not talk to you, they would cover the screens, because people like spy on other teams and like it's competitive, and like this is just, I mean, I know of teams who have like hired entertainers to walk around and distract other teams before, like this has happened. And so it's hard for somebody walking through the room for the first time to actually like learn what's going on, for them to like feel like they're kind of a part of it. It's like you can kind of admire it from afar, and you know they're doing hard stuff, but that's about it. Yeah. And so it's just
like, I remember from like Darknet, like that was one of the things, like it was a contest which was made to like interact with other people, meet other people and things like that. But at one point, I remember it definitively, it was DEF CON 22, it was announced as a black badge competition. In the moment it was announced as a black badge competition, everyone went quiet. Everyone went into their own corner. It was too competitive.
Yeah.
So DEF CON switched now. Like they don't announce black badge contests to stop that. However,
except for CTF,
DEF CON
it's always been, and you get 8 badges for CTF winning. I've got 2 of them. I've been on 3 winning teams. The other one I didn't get the badge for, but like, and it is, and that's why it is the best. I mean, people travel from all over the world just to play CTF. They fly their 20, 30 people here just to like win this competition. It is prized, and so the fact that teams don't have any incentive, they're disincentivized from like talking about what they're doing and kind of being more casual, and like it's still special in its own way. Like the fact that it is this best premier kind of thing is really awesome. What we're trying to do this year is like when the Nautilus folks proposed, like, and took over the game, I was not like in the original proposal, and they reached out to me because they knew that like I had wanted to do like this kind of like streaming live CTF thing. And so the idea is that can we take the teams that are here, the teams that are going to be playing, and put them on camera? Can we watch their screens? Can we see what they're doing and talk about how they're doing it, right? And so this is what we've got going all weekend long, essentially. So we start about 4 hours after the actual CTF starts tomorrow, all the way until the very end. Every hour we're doing a new round of live CTF. And so it's a bracket. It's like a March Madness. There's 16 teams, and so in the first round we're going to have 8 matches. And if you beat your opponent, you move on to the next round. Every round's a different binary, a different challenge, and they go and they sit in the middle. We're capturing their screens on HDMI capture. We've got like a whole streaming setup over there, 2 commentators, and we're going to be like, looking at what they're doing, talking about what they're doing, explaining the right answer.
Is this like a micro challenge within the CTF?
Yeah, so this is like, these are meant to be very easy, quick speed challenges, right? So we hope people solve these like in, each match has to last less than an hour, including sort of setup and test and stuff. So these are meant to be shorter challenges. If somebody solves one in like 5-10 minutes, that's fantastic. So like they're going to be quick, but that also means they're like ones that we can talk about a little bit more. It's a little bit to explain. It's hard to say like, oh, what is this person doing? It took them 4 hours to reverse engineer something and create an exploit. Like that's a lot to kind of unpack. But these little ones you can talk about more easily, and we're done with them really quick, and then we move on to the next one, and so we can talk about the secret right away. We can explain what the answer was because we're not spoiling everybody else.
I love this. Like this is the first time I'm hearing about. I absolutely love this. Yeah. Not only obviously because it pulls more of the community into you and watch it, but you can see these things happen real time. And I like the fact that they're quick challenges, like somewhere within an hour. Yep. Because like something me and Gowrie have talked about is some of what we do, especially when you're doing vulnerability research, is you're sitting and you're staring at the screen for 8 hours.
Absolutely.
Or you make no progress because hindsight's 20/20, and all of a sudden you go, oh. And it's one line of code. Like some of the most sophisticated exploits in the world come down to one line of code.
Yeah, it's like the plumber charging for the screw. It's not so much the screw, it's like the knowledge of knowing how to get to it. That's the hard part, right? Like where does it go? Where do you tighten? What do you do? Like that's the same thing. And so how do we, We also challenge design. Part of the goal is to make these things fun to watch and a little bit of the breadth of the type of challenges. So you're not going to get the same type of challenges that you would get at any normal Jeopardy CTF in live CTF necessarily. So if the teams are watching, then maybe this will be a little bit of a hint for them. Hopefully they'll get rewarded for that. It'll be a little similar to what DEF CON Finals is like. So it's more reverse engineering, more ponables. We're not going to throw a forensics challenge at you and just kind of mix it up. Partly because the teams that are here and the way they're selected and the way they're focused, they're all here for DEF CON Finals, and that's got a very kind of specific flavor. So we're kind of matching that, but again, very easy, very like lower difficulty level of challenges, such that you got to be fast, you got to be quick, and we'll see who wins.
Do the teams know there's like a live hack challenge?
So we did tell the teams in advance. We don't want them to be like surprised and freaked. It is nerve-wracking. Like I've done these kind of like live stream, like live, and it's hard enough to like just type at a computer and do a normal thing when somebody else is looking over your shoulder, let alone when you're streaming to like hundreds of thousands of people. And so we wanted them to be prepared. We wanted them to know. So last week the teams were emailed and said, hey, this is going to happen. We gave them a little bit of details. We didn't run through all of the rules. We'll go through tomorrow with them the specifics and some of the kind of the more things. We're not trying to like be mean. We really want them to send their best person. We're going to tell them, hey, listen, this next challenge is going to be of this type on this architecture. Like we're actually going to give them some hints and some like so that they send the right person from their team to represent their team for that challenge. And so they're going to go in the middle. They're going to compete with whoever else they're matched up against. And we want the best person to see. We want them to win. If they don't solve it in time, we have like sudden death challenges where we're going to like give a backup that's like real fast and incredibly easy. And that's kind of boring. We don't want to use those, but we also want to keep things on schedule. And so like we kind of have plans. So we want them to send their best person. We want them to destroy these challenges, to solve them in ways that we didn't expect. And it'll be super fun to see that happen.
What's so crazy about that too is you think, again, this is the pinnacle of DEF CON CTF. Like this is a pinnacle of CTF. And I imagine, like, you're gonna get up there, and I imagine my hand shaking, like, even just something as simple as, like, okay, I need to write a simple command, and you're like, if I mistype this, like, everyone's gonna see. So not nerve-wracking, but my goodness, is that stuff, like, it's a lot, like, it's a whole nother skill level.
No, it is. It's a different type of, like, some people are really good at just, exploitation or good at reverse engineering, but when you put them in a different environment, it is more challenging. Like, having done it, in fact, even in challenge design, as we're playtesting and going through our things, we're like, no, easier. It's not because these people are not good. They are some of the best hackers in the world in this room, unquestionably. It's going to be harder when you're on camera, and we know this. And so we're really, hopefully we dialed in the difficulty right, and we'll see. But at the same time, there's going to be people who will know things that we didn't. They're going to know solutions we didn't. These are great competitors. I'm looking forward to being surprised about some of these, because I think that's super fun when you can say, like, that's not what I intended, that's amazing, they found a different bug, good for them.
I'm excited that I get to experience watching this too. Like, so here's the ultimate question. Is that what you are most excited for in this CTF? Like, you've been doing this for so many years. What are you most excited this year?
I mean, if it's successful, yes. It is a little nerve-wracking even running it because, like I said, actually we tried a little precursor to this back in the Legit BS days, and it wasn't streamed, it was just recorded, but I messed up the audio levels on my co-presenter's microphone, and so it was a little bit longer of a match. It was a 4v4. It was kind of more complicated trying to track all the 4 participant screens and switch between them. And it was demoralizing when that didn't happen. It was also just the kind of the one event. So if it goes successfully, if hopefully the team member, I think the teams are mixed feelings. Like having talked to a couple of them, like, what are you thinking? They're all like, oh, I'm a little nervous, right? To your point, like this is a different thing. They're used to kind of not being scrutinized so much.
Yeah, it took me a while, like in front of a camera to act like a little bit more normal. Normal for me, but a little bit more like normal. It's hard. It's a skill you do have to learn, like so many other things.
Yeah, some people are natural at it. Some people can just sit down and tune it out and do great. And I think we'll see those people. We'll see some of them who just don't even get impacted, and then we'll see others that will be like, I know what happened. I know I can do better than that.
Oh, it's so cool. Like, this has been awesome. Thank you so much. Oh, we got one more question.
Where can viewers watch?
Great question from Gowrie before we wrap up. Where can viewers watch the live stream?
LiveCTF.com.
Nice.
So livectf.com. Right now we'll just have a banner. It's going to redirect, or we'll have an embed to the YouTube where we'll actually be streaming. fact, I need to update that shortly, so we'll get that live and get that out to everybody. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We actually want to have other live CTF events, not like run by the same people. I kind of want live CTF to be like a B-sides thing. I would love to have other people using the live CTF banner. I don't have the energy to run this more than once a year and put all these challenges and do all this stuff, but I'd love for other people to do the same thing at other CTFs. I'd love for this to be a thing that lots of CTFs do, because I think it'll be engaging. I think it'll help people kind of get into it and get excited about it and see how good some of these people are and like learn kind of some of these skills.
Yeah, maybe even find like your team you want to root for. Maybe you're going to see people like their banners streaming.
Yeah, in background, like cheering their folks on. So
thank you so much. We're going to catch up throughout the week and throughout the weekend as more of this unfolds and we get to hear a little bit more of the secrets. Thank you so much for just sharing so much of this. Thank you for watching. And as always, hack on.